I think I'm getting it in reverse, and I press the pedal and smash into like a fence.
Oh,
in front.
yikes.
And we're at a body shop. It was.
You were in a Porsche and you drove it into a...
Let the new guy, 20 years old,
Wow.
even though he had an amazing area, what he thought what the business was going to be was not what he felt that he had. And the work that he was having to do in the business wasn't necessarily what he wanted to do. And I tell people now, when you're looking at a franchise, it's not necessarily about the widget, but what the widget can do to help you meet your goals and build the vision and legacy that you want. Early on, it's important to really identify who you are and who you're not, and then build a business that you don't want people that are just like you, but you also want people that can buy into your culture and that can fit into the puzzle piece. Yo, this is the Streetwise Podcast, where we help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready, let's go.
And then you just let it down.
And it just slowly, because it's
it'll
got the
just-
hydraulic system.
It's
it just
hydraulic. and
slowly.
the more weight on it, the faster it drops. Yeah, it's right here. So like I'll show you, watch, you'll see it. It'll go up. Well, it'll make it go down. And it just lands on there. And that makes him nervous.
I got so scared.
But I know, yeah, it's like right there, so I know it. But
Okay.
it was still probably
Just
5
picture
feet
your
away.
wife behind you, like
She was like, you look like you almost hit that. But she won't even get in the cars.
And I didn't know how to drive a stick, and on my first day, I think I'm getting it in reverse, and I press the pedal and smash into like a fence.
Oh,
in front.
yikes.
And
What
we're at
were
a
you
body
in?
shop. It was.
You were in a Porsche and you drove it into a...
Let the new guy, 20 years old,
Wow.
just the way my mind thinks. There's groups and there's individuals and there's people that I highly value, and it's like, yes, I respect and enjoy what I do, but I literally walk through life like this, and like it's every connection that I make might be my role that I have 2, 4, 10 years from now.
The feelings meet.
So, dude, thank you so much for being out here with us. We've met, I don't know how long ago?
2 months ago? 3?
No, it was
cold.
It was a little longer.
Yeah, it was maybe a little longer.
I think it was longer than that. But Matthew, you are a very impressive individual, being a multi-brand franchisee. And then you also have your podcast, and you're also in the broker network. You do a lot of different things.
Yes.
And so it was a really natural fit for you to come on the podcast and talk about yourself and what you do. Would you mind introducing yourself and all the brands that you're with, and who are you?
Well, I appreciate that. That was a really cool compliment. Father, husband, serial entrepreneur, I guess. So my background is in education, specifically in the inner city. So when I went to college, I went to Wheaton College, played football, ran track, and my degree is in criminal justice, criminology, criminal justice. The goal was to go into these inner cities and be the presence that is often missing in those areas, right? Like you hear about a lot of gang violence, and you think about the avatar that fits into that violence and who's actually doing it. These are kids, and kids that the homes are broken, yes, but the communities are suffering. And so my hypothesis at the time was, if I can go in, I can bridge the gap between a lot of these communities and the resources and the opportunities that I've been able to see in my personal life. And so I graduated from Wheaton in 2013, went to a school in the west side of Chicago, Chicago Hope Academy, worked there for a couple years, lived on the west side in Humboldt Park. Crazy experience, man.
Is that a rough part? I don't know anything about Chicago.
Humboldt Park specifically, you're in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, but I lived on an African American street where the majority of people that lived on my street were black, but it was in a Puerto Rican neighborhood. So just imagine there were probably 2 or 3 rival gangs that all kind of combined in that area. One of the last weekends I was there, just coincidentally, this didn't cause me to leave, but there was actually a Puerto Rican festival at the park, and a drive-by came through on the street, and we had bullets come through our window. Wow. And I'm literally sitting on the couch with my roommate watching TV, and we would hear shots fire off from time to time, but we'd also hear firecrackers, like fireworks. Yeah. And we'd never, like the game was being able to determine, you know, guys from the suburbs, right, determine what it was. Yeah. And my roommate is sitting there, now my brother-in-law, and he's like, oh my gosh, dude, it's fireworks, take it easy. The next second, window shatters, we're both on the floor, wow. And it's like, whew. Man, I'm leaving 2 weeks, man. I'm glad I'm getting out of here. Wow. But yeah, that's what I did. So I did that in Chicago Hope Academy is a private school, Christian-based school. Man, I love what they're doing there. Very special. The Musikowski family founded that school, and they're doing amazing things. It's a great day to be an Eagle. Like, those guys are awesome. I moved to Dallas in late 2014. And didn't really know what to do. My wife's family had moved down from Minnesota and just kind of set up camp here. My wife was still in school. She transferred to DBU. I took a job in sales, working at a call center, making $200 a day. Loved the team, hated the job. Yeah. I mean, imagine me, from what we know, like I'm moving all over the place, and I got to sit and I got to make calls at a desk in my little cubicle. Just think about that.
I know it because I've tried to do it myself. I've taken jobs before that I quickly realized I shouldn't have taken.
I lasted 7 months, and it was
That's
the typical
discipline in its own right.
It was the typical, like, I would have dreams of making phone calls and then wake up to go make phone calls, and it was torture. I mean, I was depressed. Yeah.
So you were making, these were sales calls?
Sales calls.
How many a day were you having to make?
The goal was $200 a day.
Oh, God. And that's an auto dialer then. You were dealing with an auto dialer.
I'm sitting there, I got a list, and what Fancloth, they actually got bought out by BSN very recently, and BSN actually recently just shut them down. But we were a fundraising company, so we would set up these apparel fundraisers, customized apparel for schools. I'd call the head coach of the softball team and say, hey, instead of selling cookie dough, let's set up this fundraiser for your school. It's free for you, no cost. You just got to get your kids to go out and sell this apparel. And so it wasn't a hard sell, right? And me being a coach, I could engage with these guys. I had just actually started getting good at it, but I couldn't do it anymore. So I left there thinking, what am I good at now? Well, I got my personal training license. I started tutoring, SAT, ACT tutoring. I started working at Prestonwood Christian Academy as a coach, and then I got a job for a guy who did sports camps for kids. Okay. So I'm doing all these things, do that for about 5 months, and then think, let me just wrap this up into my own hustle. I start Hero Athletics, teach, train, build. So I'm going to teach you I'm going to teach your mind with academic tutoring. I'm going to train your body with athletic development, and we're going to build a community, and we're going to build you as an individual. So I offered life coaching as well. So those were my 3
And these
platforms.
are high school age kids?
Middle school to high school kids. Okay. And so now I'm going to churches and to schools pitching my program. I last about 2 months, and I take it to a school in South Dallas, Cornerstone Crossroads Academy. Okay. Down in South Dallas, connected to Cornerstone Baptist Church. Okay. Christy Lichtenberg is the executive director there. She heard my pitch, said, we don't have a space for that, but we like you. Would you come on full time? So this was a very synergistic place from where I was when I was in Chicago, much smaller, more intimate setting, same demographic of kids. So I came on, I was a life coach. I started a leadership program, and we started our work study program. So Cornerstone is a second chance school where the demographic of students, these guys either got kicked out of high school, they got arrested. I mean, my range of students that were coming back to get their high school diploma, my oldest, now I was 24 at the time. The oldest student that I was a life coach to was, I think, 38. Wow. And he'd been in prison. And I'm 24, and I'm his life coach.
Wow. And he was coming back and trying to go back through school.
He was coming back and trying to go through school. Now, Cornerstone has modified itself a little bit. They have 2 platforms now. So one is a GED program focused on getting the students in and getting them set up with a trade. Then that's where the work study program that we started back in the day has developed, and that's kind of what that's turned into since I left. And then they have the classic high school approach that is geared to get the students to college. So the school, I was on the board for Cornerstone after I left. So in 2016, my dad retired from Apple Computer, bought Mosquito Joe, put me in charge. So I'd been at Cornerstone for a little over a year and a half when we started Mosquito Joe. But actually in 2019, they approached me and I came on the board for Cornerstone. So it was a really cool full circle
really cool.
moment. And I just actually left the board this year in February. Super hard decision, but it was the right decision because, like you said, I got a lot of stuff going on right now. And for me, I got to figure out how to focus in what I'm doing. And I wasn't able to really give what I felt I should be giving.
So what was your role on the board? I mean, you're really young to have already been on a board, especially for something like that.
That's a good point. Most of the members of the board, they were members of Watermark Church, which partnered with the school, especially early on in its founding. They were more financial contributors. They were donors that wanted to speak into the direction. I was the first ex-employee to be on the board. And also because of my background and who I am and my approach, I offered a very different perspective than what most of the board, biracial, my mom's black, my dad's white. I kind of grew up in a ton of diverse environments. And most of the board, I mean, these guys are mainly white,
older, wealthier. There's a much different perspective.
There's
a bit of a divide between they didn't relate as much.
And Christy Lichtenberg, the director, I respect her so much. She was so intentional about seeking diversity in the leadership of the school and how the whole thing was structured. And so that was her thing. And I love her vision, and I got nothing but good things to say about that place. It's got a special place in my heart. But anyway, start Mosquito Joe in 2016. I got married on March 12th, 2016. My dad flew my wife and I to Virginia Beach for corporate training, franchisee training.
That was your honeymoon?
On March 13th, 2016. We fly out, come back,
That's
launch
commitment
the
right
business,
there.
and been in it.
Did he go with you, or did he just send y'all to learn it?
So at the time, he was like retired. Like he was living in Austin. He bought the business up here in Dallas, and he had gone to like the Discovery. And I'm pretty sure he went to Academy at a different time than we did. He had to know how to run the business.
Right.
And it might have been a requirement for him, but the way things matched up, we went on our own.
And you grew up in the Austin area, the Austin suburbs.
Pflugerville, Texas, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you know how to spell that. You know how to spell it.
Oh, yeah.
What letters to start with?
P?
There we go.
Did I get it? I could have just as well been wrong on that.
We got it.
I'm literally thinking, okay, it's been a while since I've driven south on 35, but the only reason I know it is because south on 35.
You see that sign, you can't miss it, man.
You can't miss it. And I only know how to pronounce it because growing up in middle school, I had a friend. Her name was Joy. I don't remember her last name, but her name was Joy. And she was from Pflugerville.
Nice.
And that's the only, between that and the highway sign is the only thing I know about Pflugerville.
Yeah, Pflugerville, man. Special place in my heart. I love Austin, grew up there. I like DFW. It's grown on me.
Yeah.
For 10 years now.
Yeah. So now, I mean, you've lived here longer in your adult life than you did there, pretty much.
Yeah, because when I graduated high school, went to Texas State, went there for a year before transferring to Wheaton.
My sister graduated from Texas State.
Nice.
It wasn't it? It was called something different before.
Southwest Texas back in the day.
Way back, yeah. But yeah, that's where my sister got her undergrad.
All right, sweet.
So
man.
she still lives in Austin. She's lived in Austin since she was 18. She left Allen.
Had to be older sister then.
Little sister. That's my little sister. She's 3 years younger than me.
Okay, so what year was she there? Might have been there around the same time.
I have no idea. Hold on, yeah, you're right. So I'm 39. She's 36. So she would have been a year or two older.
She was ahead of me, so she would have been there when I was there. I would have been a freshman.
Probably a junior or senior.
Okay.
Probably
didn't cross paths.
Probably.
But, we were there.
Her name's Lucy. You'd remember her. All I got to do is I tell you her name. You either know her. If you know her, you know her.
Those years are fuzzy, man. Those years are fuzzy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you have Mosquito Joe's 2016.
Yep.
What was the evolution of that, or what has it been like?
So 2016, launched Mosquito Joe. It was probably 2018 that we realized we needed to do something. Mosquito Joe's a seasonal business, right?
And this was, I didn't mean to, multiple territories? I know you've told me this before.
We started, my dad bought the Waco territory first.
Okay.
Didn't open Waco until 2020. Then he bought Waxahachie, Garland, and Rockwall.
Okay.
At the time, I lived in Saxe, so we opened up Rockwall, serviced Garland. We did a newspaper article in Waxahachie, one of the news, Waxahachie Daily did something on us, and then we got about 10 customers from that one thing in Waxahachie. Built that out. In 2018, we acquired the Plano-Frisco area. So we went from maybe 200 customers overnight to 600. Wow. And we inherited a team, right? Yeah. So, I mean, you guys...
Because this was a pre-established.
This was a pre-established business. I had met the owner at our convention, our annual convention, and he was just a good guy. We clicked, you know. He was a little bit older, so we'd be at the pool after everything, you know, have a drink in hand, and he's showing me memes, and like I'm sitting there laughing at him, like, oh, yeah, it's funny. You know, after the 20th one, you get kind of old, but I'm indulging him because he's a good dude. Little did I know that a couple months later, he would approach me, and this is the thing, like, relationships and the power of networking. Like, you never know like what's going to happen when you engage and put yourself out there with another person. He reaches out. I remember it was my sister-in-law's birthday party, and I take a call. It's in beginning of February, so maybe a month after the convention. Calls and is like, hey man, we're going to sell this business, and there's 3 other people in the DFW market that we could sell it to, but I really like you, and I think you guys would kill it. Oh man, I don't know how I'm going to fund this thing. We don't have the money. Well, we'll figure it out. And we did.
That's awesome. And so that was the Plano territory. Does that stretch in north of 121? You've got Frisco and
Plano, Frisco, a good chunk of Prosper, everything in Allen and McKinney that is west of 75. Okay. McKinney and Allen kind of split. So my guy Michael Seitz owns the other half.
I was going to say there must be one guy that owns. There's only
we
one
border
guy.
each other.
I was going to say you
across.
like border each other, so, like you almost have him locked in, boxed in.
He kind of has us boxed in, because we're on that west side. So if you look at the Dallas North Tollway and 75, we're within that.
You've got all that,
and then he's got above, so the Prosper, Salina. You go up to Anna
Melissa, and then back to East
down
McKinney.
And he's kind of have this boxed in. So the goal is one day he buys me or I buy him.
Yeah,
it's
sense.
the only.
So how many territories is he? Is he 2 or 3?
He has
or is that
3.
Just 3. Okay.
I'm so jealous of his setup. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So
see, it feels like based on what you're telling me and what I know about these zip codes, you've got the premium zip codes.
We have more premium.
You have way more premium.
We've got some nice density.
You have like some of the best in my mind. You have some of the best zip codes in the country.
We do. If you look at franchising and how the industry, how the franchising world works, every time a new brand launches, it's in that area. It's one of the fastest selling franchise locations
Collin County
in the entire country.
And then Rockwall County. Those are the 2 best counties in Texas, basically.
100%. So I got a nice setup.
That leads me to ask, why did that franchisee sell? Why was he looking to sell in the first place?
I think there was some personal stuff. I think he was maybe a little burnt out. I think when people get into franchising, they get, and we can talk about this. Franchising, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West, and it is an area that needs to be disrupted a little bit, in my opinion.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I knew
I
you
could
would.
get on a rant, but I want to do that when I get on your podcast.
Okay, we can. And you get a lot of people that get sold a dream and they live a nightmare. Yeah. And you get these franchise sales folks that are out there that, I mean, there's the way the commissions are structured. I mean, you can make so much money selling brands.
The C-suite consulting world of the franchise industry
it's crazy, man.
I think it's got a lot of good. I love the industry for a lot of reasons, but like you're talking, it's got a lot of bad.
Yeah, and a lot of people get taken advantage of. And that was one of the things for me when I looked at, what's the next thing I want to do. I saw that I have a lot of value that I can give and add to the space. And even though he had an amazing area, what he thought what the business was going to be was not what he felt that he had. And the work that he was having to do in the business wasn't necessarily what he wanted to do. And I tell people now, when you're looking at a franchise, it's not necessarily about the widget, but what the widget can do to help you meet your goals and build the vision and legacy that you want. And there was a disconnect there. Yeah. He didn't like the employees that he was having to employ. Yeah. When certain members of the team don't show up, where do you have to fall into the business, right? And a certain widget you're going to fall in a different space. Well, Mosquito Joe, people don't show up. You're spraying for
You're the
mosquitoes.
spray technician. Yep.
You're
No,
out
you're
there
exactly
going
right.
door to door carrying that backpack.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building, Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode.
Our third Scoop Soldiers franchisee was a gentleman that is to this day was then and still is my business partner at Executive Lawn Care, one of our businesses that I did not co-found and don't really have anything to do with, but between my partner and I, we own a majority in it. But he had started that and done awesome, and so he was like, well, of course, I'll buy. And he bought the Plano, Wiley, Saxe down to Rockwall, a single territory, but it had 200 clients even when he bought it. But after a year and a half, he hated it for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't used to having to, the model of Executive Lawn Care is very different. You have no W-2 employees. He wasn't used to having W-2 employees and vehicles that you had to maintain, and you're constantly turning those employees over. And when those employees quit, he was the guy going out. Oh, he hated it, and so he quickly sold to one of our other franchisees.
Which is what I advise people to do when they get caught in that space. And I wish, let me say it like this: I like it when I see franchisors coming in, acknowledging that it takes two to tango, right? Like acknowledging that there needs to be a shift made, and instead of pointing fingers, making blame, let's help exit this guy and get somebody in that can really take this thing and grow it to what the potential of it is.
Yeah.
So we were able to make that work. It helped get my dad and mom up here into Dallas from Pflugerville, moved up here in 2018. And for him, he didn't like the retired life. He was getting fidgety. He was getting
Your dad?
Yeah. And so now he's more involved in the business. He's able to, he doesn't necessarily need to be for the sake of the business's growth, but we have him in his sweet spot where he enjoys what he gets to do. There's a couple of tweaks I'll still make if it was up to me, but we're in a good spot with it now.
Good.
For sure.
So what does he focus on? What is his little sweet spot?
So he does all of our misting system sales.
Okay.
He does, he'll engage with the high level, the customers, the big issues. He loves people.
He
loves
does the
talking
big
to
ticket
folks.
items in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
The stuff, so he was an accounts receivable for Apple for 20 years. And so some of the stuff that he hasn't quite let go of yet, the bookkeeping things, the tax stuff, the things that, I'm not going to pay somebody else for because I'm really good at this stuff. Which, those are things that I would personally shift. Those are areas that for me, I've experienced that myself, but I've acknowledged that if I want to scale my personal life and my business, I need to get the heck up out of this and replace. So those are things that for a while, that was a strain on our relationship because I saw it one way, he saw it another way. But with the way that we've grown and scaled to this point, I've acknowledged that this was his initial investment and it's his legacy, and I am here to kind of help serve him in that. And so how can I help structure the business in a way that he can kind of come in and have a purpose in it every single day, which kind of led to me looking to do and expand in other areas.
And so is Groovy Hughes, is that something you did separately?
So yeah, Groovy Hughes is a completely separate franchise with a completely separate parent company that we've done completely separate LLC. He doesn't have any technical ownership over it on paper.
He helps with it, I imagine.
But he's involved. So every Monday, we implement EOS. And so every Monday we have our level 10 meeting and we have the entire leadership team. So I've got my Mosquito Joe, I've got my Groovy folks, and we're literally sitting here and we're talking all things State of the Union. And we go through, so he's a part of that. So he speaks into kind of the wise sage, speaks into all things across the board. Awesome. And it's a really fun space.
You mentioned level 10 meetings. That has literally been in my inbox, my snoozed inbox, every weekend for like the last 2.5 years, and I still have not gotten around to like studying exactly how the level 10 meetings work. I've got to look into that. You've heard me talk about it.
I think I've looked into it a little bit, and I think we do a lot.
We're doing a lot of it, and I kind of, what little I know about it, we are doing a lot of it, but I've never officially studied it and implemented it. But
so I picked up the book. So Gino Wickman is the author. I picked up the book. The OG book is Traction. And then they've built a whole EOS library. EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Okay.
And the system is EOS, and they have this whole library. So I picked up Traction in 2020, and I started looking at the book, like, this is too dense. Too dense. And fast forward to 2022, I'm listening to some podcasts, and I hear my hero, Eric Van Horn, just launched his episode today.
it's fascinating you mentioned him.
Yeah,
I was just talking to him literally the last 2 days. I've been messaging him on LinkedIn.
I am in the space I am today because of Eric Van Horn and the Franchise Secrets podcast, and the fact that today is the 1-year anniversary of me launching the Streetwise podcast, May 24th, and I just launched my episode with him.
Man, that's awesome. I literally was just talking. I was just talking to him in the last 2 days. He and I were going back and forth because he was asking me different questions about my Scoop Soldiers.
Front Street Equity Partners.
Yeah. I came across his, I think it's Facebook actually. It's his social media group on Facebook.
The Mastermind?
Yes. That one, yes. Yeah. And I got in, I joined into it in the last month or so, and he was messaging me, and I was a little slow to respond, to be honest with you. I felt a little bad, but I'm just bad about Messenger. But yeah, I've literally been messaging with him this week. That's awesome. That's a small world.
That's crazy, small world. So I'm literally listening to his podcast on a run. He's talking about rocket fuel, which is like the Cliff Notes version, and it talks about the difference between a visionary and an integrator. Integrator is the guy that beats the drum, runs the day-to-day. Visionary, I think you and I might relate on this. A lot of ideas, can't stay still, 20 ideas a day, maybe a minute. Half of them are not any good, but there's a gem in there somewhere. I'm a visionary, but I was sitting in the integrator seat.
Okay.
And my visionary was kicking the legs out from under the integrator. And so I had to figure out how to adapt that. And we've adjusted our business structure immensely since kind of going back through and studying that whole stuff.
That's awesome.
So.
Yeah, much more visionary, and I've got a team of people now, thank goodness, to do the same.
That makes sense.
I've got Ben, I've got Jeremy Langlitz, my VP of Business Administration, and he takes care of like the insurance. He's going in for his accounting degree. He'll have his accounting degree by the end of the year.
That's beautiful.
And then Cynthia Hernandez, our Vice President of Operations. And basically, whenever I think in my head of something I don't want to do, I pretty much think of one of those three. Which one of them is it going to be? Ben, Jeremy, or Cynthia? Which one of them is going to do this?
Oh, that's beautiful, man.
But
that's beautiful. Right
keep them
people,
busy.
right seats.
Yeah, I think I'm actually turning more visionary than.
In a lot of ways, you are. Yeah. So Ben and I just partnered.
It's a constant struggle.
We're in the process of partnering. You mentioned the accounting side. Your dad doing all of y'all's accounting. So we just adjusted our FDD at Scoop Soldiers and at Chorbie. This year, we're actually going to mandate our franchisees use White Picket Team for their accounting, which is the company we're partnering on. The company I started 5 years ago, but we're partnering on. And the reason we're doing that is not necessarily, it's because we've recognized that every single P&L and balance sheet that is being managed by White Picket already, half of our franchisees already use White Picket. The books are beautiful. They're clean. They're up to date every Friday, technically even every day, because our controller right now is literally up every morning at 4 a.m. and he syncs everything, and so the books are basically real time. And then every franchisee that uses some other source, their books aren't bad necessarily, but they're not synced up. They're not the same. They're always different. And you can imagine what that does to a franchisor with your item 19,
it's
especially
tough.
because we're so transparent with our item 19. When you look at Scoop Soldiers item 19, we've pretty much laid out our entire business in the item 19. Mainly because I have a big mouth and I want to be able to say what I feel like saying, and so I've got to put it in the
Might as well put it out there.
Got to put it in the FDD, but we've got to. We recognize this challenge that the books are completely. When you got even just 15 franchisees, let alone 100 or 1,000, every accountant does the books a little differently.
Yep.
And so that's something we've done recently.
It can get super messy if it's not done. So Neighborly has tried to go back and add systems, and because I think they're a little late, Now you're dealing with these franchisees that have been in the game for 10 years, and they want nothing to do
exactly.
with
And
it.
I've gotten some pushback even with our little system. You know, still an emerging brand, still constantly in a state of change. We're just starting, starting this new. But yeah, we've gotten even a little bit of pushback on it.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not doing it because I'm like just this shrewd business person that just wants to control everything. Oh no, I'm doing it because the system needs it.
And a lot of franchisees don't see what the franchisor sees, and they're not looking at the bigger picture, and a lot of them don't care.
No,
too.
they don't.
And that's kind of
that's something I've learned too, is that a
disconnect.
lot of franchisees, like when you mention the FDD or when you mention the handbook, I mean, I'm pretty guilty of this myself, but they've never actually read it. Like they don't actually know what's in there.
I talk to my neighbor franchisee.
Exactly.
We chop it up a couple times a year. I'm good. Let me do my thing.
Yeah.
That's probably the majority of franchisees out there across the board. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, how many franchise businesses do you own?
So Mosquito Joe and Groovy Hughes, the two.
Okay.
So far, you're a multi-brand franchisee with those two brands.
Right.
But what's the Christmas lights?
So Hero Home Services started in 2018 because that's what we were talking about. Like, thank you. See, that's why we got to have.
That's exactly why.
Dude, you're awesome,
exactly
man.
why. Yeah, he keeps us on track.
We realized it was a seasonal business, right? So I wasn't able to keep my guys in the off season, and I didn't like having to start over every year. So what can we do? Christmas lights. And through networking, I was always talking about, oh yeah, one day I'm going to start a Christmas light business. I said it to the wrong person, or the right
or the wrong, depending on how
the
you
right
look at it.
person, and I get a call one day, and it's like, hey, so and so gave me your name and says you do Christmas lights. I didn't have any structure, but it was like, oh, time to go. So I was like, yeah, we do, for sure. And I took a bunch of like YouTube video notes on how to quote Christmas lights, went out there, completely butchered, didn't get that bid, but we ended up doing, I think, 10 to 12 Christmas light jobs that year. Next year we did 20, next year we did 30, and the last couple of years we've done about 60-ish, 50, 60
awesome.
jobs, you know. The year before was, okay, let's make this profitable. And then last year was, how do we do this without me having to get on a single roof?
Yeah.
And we did it.
Yeah.
I didn't do a single Christmas light.
Congratulations.
Which the year before,
That's a whole other level.
when it was making it profitable, I did every single roof. I'm in the Cougar Paws. I'm up there. I'm on top. I'm doing all the crazy stuff. My wife is.
I was going to say.
She forbade me from doing it. So I was like, all right, I got to figure out how to
I was going to say, that's more
outsource.
risky than race car driving. If you ask me, I'll be honest,
keep that in mind.
and I hate to say this, I kind of hate to say this, but Chorbie's done Christmas lights for, I think 2017 was our first year.
Okay, so you got a couple years on this.
So, and I think we did around 200 jobs last year. I hate Christmas lights. It makes me so nervous. Every time around Christmas, I'm like starting in July, we start talking about safety. Like we're talking about safety all the time, but starting in July, we start talking, okay, are we training the guys on ladders? Are we doing what are the newest safety measures that we can take, the new tech and the new different, I say tech, the new gadgets that are keep you safe, because those roofs just make me nervous.
The roofs, man, the ladders, kind of the structure and the angle, and you got, back in the day, it was just me and my dad, and I'm the one that's got to climb up, and he's at the bottom holding the ladder, and it's a little shaky, and he puts a little rock next to it, and he's like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, man,
but that's
no.
I grew up, funny, the very first year I had experience with Christmas lights, I was 18, might have even only been 17, but it was the first Christmas that I graduated high school. And I needed to figure out what was I going to do for the winter, the seasonality of a high school kid mowing 100 yards a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to do Christmas lights. And so I remember this, I paid $3,000 to the guy, or maybe it wasn't $3,000. It wasn't $3,000. I didn't have that kind of money, but I paid for 3,000 door hangers to be put out. So that was more like $300.
Sure. Yeah.
And I paid to have these door hangers put out over here in North Plano.
Yeah.
And I'm doing all the Christmas lights. This is way before LEDs or anything like that, and I didn't know what I was doing. All I can remember. I remember a few, but I remember sitting over the ledge of a two-story house. It wasn't like a steep pitch, because I didn't do a bunch of steep pitched roofs. If I didn't feel comfortable on them, I just didn't bid it. But I just remember feeling like I was near death. And then at the end of the year, because you got to go back and take it all down, and I did the math on what I made for my time, and I'd have been better off going and working at Kohl's for Christmas.
Hurts
and
my
so
heart.
From then on, I was so anti Christmas lights until the brand of Chorbie started to come about, and it was like, well, we kind of got to do everything, whether I want to do it or not. That's the vision, and we want to serve the clients and provide this convenience. And so it was like, all right, Christmas lights is a low-hanging fruit. It's something that we ought to be able to do with 7,000 clients. It fits. And so we started the first year, and of course, it never makes as much money as you think it's going to. And so then it's been questionable. And so for years, we were like, we are making money on this. Like, we are not lowballing anything. We are going to be the most expensive Christmas light installer out there, because if we're getting on that roof, we got to make it worth it.
Yeah, amen.
And that's still kind of where we've been.
Amen.
Or sit.
Yeah, so very, very similar. We started that. We ended up spinning Hero Home Services, where we did the Christmas lights. We did the pest control that Mosquito Joe didn't do. I made friends with a roofing contractor, general contractor guy, and he would have me do attic insulation jobs for him. And so we realized, like, okay, we're going to spin this into an all-encompassing home services business. We bought a lawn care company that did weed control and fertilization. The mistake we made was we immediately added the maintenance into it, and we were not ready. And we broke it. We broke that whole business, like crumbled, because we added way too early and we didn't put in the systems. So I was chasing you guys, and then we actually sold the lawn care side. We kind of divested everything out, and we spun the Christmas lights into Lumiere, and we'll see how it goes. It's Christmas lights now. If it gets some legs and we get everything else in order, we could do all outdoor lighting.
But this is not franchise. This isn't
not a franchise. That's our brand. That's internal, and we're kind of taking it very slowly at this point.
Because the parent company, Groovy Hughes, one of their biggest, most successful brands is a Christmas light brand, isn't it?
Blingle,
yes.
Blingle, yeah. Horsepower has they've got Mighty Dog Roofing, Blingle, Gatsby Glass, Bumblebee Blinds, Heroes Lawn Care, Groovy Hughes, iFoam, and Stand Strong Fencing.
So I was just listening to, on the way back from Atlanta on Monday, I came across in my downloaded YouTube, I download podcasts and then I'll listen to them, but this one was like 2 years old.
Okay.
And it was the founders of
Zach Butler, Josh Skolnick.
And I was it was from 2022, but they were talking about having 25 brands by 2025.
25 by 25.
They're not going to hit that, I don't think.
Well, they've pivoted, and instead of brands, it's verticals. Okay. And so the thing about Horsepower is that they've got the internal call center, they've got the marketing platform, they've got the Z-books, so the bookkeeping stuff.
They're requiring you use their books?
Yes.
Do their accounting?
Yes.
I would think so, yeah.
Yes. And so they have all these internal verticals along with the brands. I think what they found is that aggressive launch is not super conducive to the health of the franchisee.
Right.
And they're making a lot of changes right now with the FDDs and for new franchisees coming in. I think everybody's gotten kicked in the teeth a little bit, and I think in time we'll figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. Those are some smart
They're like
guys
us. They're
over
ambitious.
there. They're super ambitious, but yeah, I'm very interested to see how things kind of change and adapt as everybody grows, moving forward. Yeah.
So what are some lessons that you've learned as a multi-brand franchisee?
Ooh. Man, so I would say if I could go back, timing is everything, not just in the nature of like the seasonality of the business that you're in. Painting is a hard business to launch in the fall because it takes time to ramp up, and then you go into a pretty dead season. So think about that.
When is the dead season? The winter, Christmas, holidays?
It's never dead, but it does slow down when it gets cold. Christmas, people aren't really spending big money on big projects. The spring and summer, it floods open. The other thing, in adding the second brand, you got to be super intentional in making sure that your first brand is like streamlined and ready to go. For me as an owner, Mosquito Joe didn't necessarily need me, but for Groovy to launch successfully, because also I'll say, caveat to the third point, you got to make sure you're capitalized well enough. We had minimum the amount of money necessary to launch. I would advise you to make sure you got minimum plus some.
Yeah.
And so we were significantly leaning on Mosquito Joe to help support. Like Groovy doesn't pay rent. My general manager salary is currently being split from Mosquito Joe to Groovy, which is fine. That first year, he was actually still needed to be leader in Mosquito Joe. And the guy that we have that now is killing it as a leader, well, it takes time to develop if you've never been in a leadership role. And so there were some things that Groovy kind of fumbled a little bit in the beginning because the main guy that I needed alongside me to help me grow this business, his mind was distracted.
Yeah.
Right? And so that would probably be...
No, you're exactly right.
Those are some big lessons that I make sure you're well funded, you're paying attention to the seasonality, your first business can survive without you. And then the last thing I'll say, I thought that just because I was good at home services, I got it. A recurring service like pest control is very different than a sales-heavy, big project-based paint.
These are all very similar lessons that I have learned in a very similar way as you have learned.
Yeah, and so realizing like Mosquito Joe, I gotta know how much money we're gonna make this week, right? If we add customers, we'll make more.
Exactly.
If it rains all week, we'll make a little less, right? We can't control the weather, but for the most part, I can control with routing and density and scheduling how much money I can make on a certain month. If I know that if I'm down, why are we down in Allen? Oh, let's look at it. Oh, it's because that one day it rained. Oh, so Memorial Day's coming. Let's move some stuff up to catch up. Yeah. Now we're not down in Allen anymore. Right? Like you can control that.
You have so much flexibility in that, but when you're starting over every single month or every single week making the sales, right? It's a whole different game. No, that's something I've experienced at Chorbie. That's the challenges. Everything you're speaking about is literally like the definition of the problem with Chorbie. Focus. Yeah. Focus. How do you stay focused when you're offering 35 different services and still planning to add more?
Man, I read so Profit First, Michael Michalowicz. He's talking about his landscaper guy that reaches out.
You said Profit First.
Profit First. Yeah, okay. He wrote Toilet Paper.
Yeah, I know Profit First though. Yeah.
Pumpkin Plan. He's Fix This Next. Like a couple. That's the thing about me, man. I didn't study this stuff in school, and I got thrown into it fairly young enough, not as young as you. You started, mowing those lawns when you're,
yeah, but
12.
I didn't have any education. Yeah. So you've had way more formal education.
Sure. So
I couldn't finish a class.
I've learned how to be a student, and I'm a student to the game. So I'm always listening. I'm always reading. And he's talking about his landscaper that was like, oh, you need that? Oh, I can do that. Oh, I can. You need me to get up on your roof, your gutters? I can do that. And he talks about the difficulties in that sort of a mindset. Yeah. And I had a hard time with it because, again, we were building what you guys have. I mean, you guys got a huge head start on us there, but and we've
probably
now
less so than you think we do.
We've taken a step. Well, you got some nice.
That's all from poop scooping.
Okay.
Chorbie don't make me no money.
Okay. Fair enough.
Chorbie is a monster in that sense. Exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, Chorbie. As soon as it became Chorbie, it stopped making money because we're trying to go into so many services. And like you just said, what I can relate to on the paint on your Groovy Hues, my background is lawn mowing. Yeah, there's a seasonality to it, but like you say, you grow it. You get a client, you're going to keep that client for 3-4 years, by and large. Yeah. And it's recurring. And then we went in and we really wanted to build a tree trimming business. Actually, inspiration from Monster Tree Service, Josh.
Yeah, there we go.
And so it's like, we want to build this tree. Well, it's a whole different game, like you're talking about with Groovy Hues. You have to resell. You have to, first off, have branding and have the credibility to be trimming trees, and it's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
And at Chorbie, I'm using one of numerous examples. It was like that for tree and shrub. It was like that for plumbing, which we went into last year, which cost 10 times more than I thought it would. Literally, I'm not exaggerating that. I thought it would cost X, and it ended up costing 10 times X. And so plumbing is similar. Like right now, our strategy for plumbing is, break even on the commercial side, and then we can focus on building more of that recurring.
Sure.
But handyman services, that was one that, frankly, in a lot of ways, it just bombed. Like we spun our wheels to the point that now we don't even actually technically service or do handyman services because, again, we were trying to do so much, we're spread so thin to do what we need to do at Chorbie, Chorbie's a $7 million business. I'm sorry I'm taking time here, but Chorbie's a $7 million business. In reality, we've got to spend $7 million a year, which we don't have, just to market the services we have to actually build the brand. And it's because we don't have that, it's just this constant grind.
Man. Yeah.
Now, luckily, I have an awesome team.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that the benefit and the beauty in Chorbie is that I've got this incredible team. We have extremely low turnover, like ridiculously low for the services that we offer.
Which is huge.
Huge,
in
awesome
this
buy-in.
space.
We have
Yeah.
an incredible leadership structure, starting with our vice president of operations, all the way, and our director of agronomy, and our manager of fertilization, weed control, and so on and so forth. We've just got this awesome leadership team. So it literally runs itself. But yeah, it's a grind for them, and even as an entrepreneur, it's like you want it to happen so much faster than it's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, I feel that, man.
I can relate so much to it.
That's kind of why I went into instead of trying to wrap everything into one, what if I can build an operations team and then look into these franchises with some already established structure and then just add them into the team that I have. So I have a team of leaders that can operate any specific brand.
Exactly.
And that's the vision that we've been working on now on that part of it. We just gotta figure out this groovy thing.
Yeah.
And we're getting there.
I wanted to bring that up because you mentioned like you have a leadership meeting that happens every Monday. Yeah, every Monday. Who is on that team?
So it's me, my dad, whose main focus is, think about him as general manager of Mosquito Joe. I have my sales and marketing leader, and then my general manager for Groovy Hughes, and then I have my field supervisor for Mosquito Joe. And so the field supervisor, he's the one that mentioned earlier, kind of came up underneath my now general manager and was been my lead tech for a couple years, showed so much promise, would always ask the right questions. And I'm a big, you do the podcast, you learn how to ask questions. You can always tell the caliber of somebody based on the questions that they ask, especially you get somebody and you're looking at a leadership position because you can see where their mind is at. And so for him, it was like, yes. It took him a while to figure it out, but he's in a good spot now. He's doing good for us. So it's that group that meets so we got the technicians and we got the crews that we will engage for 30 minutes right before and then send them out. Like, y'all got to go because we're about to talk about you. And then we do it. We hold it down.
Awesome. That's an important aspect because, if you look at the individuals that might be watching this who might be interested in owning multiple franchise opportunities, that team that's going to help you run it because you can't do everything yourself. That's an insanely important, what you alluded to as well. What are those key elements of what you need to have in your leadership team to be able to actually operate and scale it?
Dude, I love that question. Thank you. So the first thing I tell people, you got to know yourself, right? You got to know your strengths. You got to know your weaknesses. The way you nerd out about these cars, I can nerd out about personality assessments for hours. And I really think it's important for people to dive in and really study yourself, because if I know my strengths and I know where I want to be, I know the role that I can fit into this business, especially during the launch. Anything that I am not good at and I hate, outsource that immediately. And then go from there, right? Like as you reach scale, you can outsource more things. But I think early on, it's important to really identify who you are and who you're not, and then build a business that you don't want people that are just like you, but you also want people that can buy into your culture and that can fit into the puzzle piece like we talked about earlier. I think that's really important.
So you just hit on the next thing I was going to talk about, buy-in. How do you get people to buy into it?
You got to buy into it first. You got to have, I'm big, EOS has taught me to have my core values on paper. Me, I have them on, I'm a whiteboard guy. You go into my spot, there's whiteboards everywhere. And I got my core values on the wall that you can't come in without seeing the core values. And if I know it, I pitch it, I preach it, and they don't have to truly understand why they exist, but they got to know that they're being graded on those things. Another EOS concept is the people analyzer. And when you have your core values, anywhere from 3 to 7, right?
Yep.
You set up a scale, and you're like, all right, how you grade each individual person. You either give them a plus, they exude this with excellence. You give them a plus minus, they're okay. A minus is they don't have it. With your leadership, you establish, all right, what are we willing to accept here? If I've got 5, I need 3 pluses and 2 plus minuses. If anybody has a minus, they really can't be on the team. Like there's a permission to play bar. Patrick Lencioni, another, he talks about permission to play bar. And it's like if you can establish the permission to play, you can build on that later. Like my core values. First one, ideal team player. It's a Patrick Lencioni concept. Humble, hungry, smart being emotionally intelligent.
What book is that?
So ideal team player is
That's
a
the
book,
name of the book.
is the name of the book.
What is the book that I've read of his? It wasn't
He's
that
got
one.
5 dysfunctions of a
That
team.
one. That's the one.
That's another
Yeah,
top
that
one
one
that I got. So
I knew the author's name. I couldn't think of
Yeah.
the book that I had read of his.
ideal team player is my number 1 core value. You got to be humble, hungry, and smart to be on the squad. 2 is you got to give best effort. Like you might not be good at a task, but if you're a student, you're willing to learn and try your hardest. I'll work with you.
Yeah.
The next one is value adder, problem solver. You got to seek to add value. Don't come to me with all your stuff. Like if you're just bringing me problems, I really don't need you. Like you got to at least try. Hey, here's a problem, and I think we could do this and this, and then I can help you assess which direction we can go. The next one is best. I already said best effort. The next one is service, service, service. Service your team, service yourself, and service your community. And if you can do those things, we can really build something special.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Did I say 5 in this one? I said 4.
I don't know, but they were
Ideal
good.
team player, best effort, value adder, problem solver, and then service, service, service.
See, this is why I always stick to 3 because I tend to forget anything
Yeah,
beyond
it's the
3.
ADHD, man. It's the ADHD.
It
And
is.
that's why I literally, on my podcast, I just interviewed an ADHD coach, and she talked about the whole working memory thing. And she told me a skill that you can like use is like writing stuff down and having the notifications. That's why when I walk into the shop, everything is right there in front of me. Because my working memory is not the best.
No, mine either. I know exactly what you mean. We just actually established 3 core values specifically for Chorbie. OFT. I'm gonna try my best, but I'm gonna need your help. It's OFT, O-F-T. Now I'm quizzing myself because it's literally been about 3 weeks since I've put some thought into this, and this is a perfect example of how I'm bad at remembering it. Let me think here. Ownership mindset.
There you go.
Future-minded.
Focused.
Future-focused. Thank you. And transparent.
Transparency in all things.
Transparency in all
Love
things.
it.
I knew it was transparency. Yeah, those are the Chorbie core values that
Love
we've.
it.
But we do, including me. We've got to. I've got to get better at talking about it on a weekly basis because that's
Chief
the only
repetitive
way.
officer, man. That's what, the leader,
Yep.
you just got to repeat this stuff over and over and
Oh,
over.
I think they'd all agree. I'm pretty good at that.
feel
Repeating myself.
I feel that.
But and I know something that speaks to what you're saying that Cynthia Hernandez, our VP of Operations that I've mentioned a few times, she routinely uses the term attitude and intent. It's about attitude and intent.
That's good.
And that's very much so kind of speaking to what you're talking about is does the team member have the right attitude and intent?
Yeah.
And yeah, you clearly operate that way.
That's good, man. Yeah, and the thing, I just know people that they're not going to stay with me forever, right? Like you got guys that are, they're doing landscaping, they're spraying for mosquitoes. Like they come to you in a very specific time in their life
Exactly.
that it might not last. And so when I realized that, I was like, all right, how do I create a system that will help you be better than you were when you came in? However long the time horizon is, how can you leave better than when you came?
Exactly.
And that's really cool that we've seen that.
We operate very similarly. One of the things we've done the last 2 years that Ben's been diligent in helping us be consistent in is doing a quarterly book review.
Oh, I love that.
For that
idea.
same reason is because we recognize we go to our team members, and so anybody that's in any leadership role, they are required. It's mandated that it's just once a quarter. It's a 30-minute review. It's basically we all get on and talk about the book we read, and we have 12 weeks to read it. So it's really not too difficult. But we mandate it for anybody that's in any kind of leadership position, and we push and very much so encourage anybody that's a technician or anything, but to be on here, and we tell them, look, you've got a university in your truck. You've got Bluetooth, and you've got all of this content, YouTube, all the different everything. YouTube in itself is better than Harvard, frankly. And so use that, and we want to help you with that. at least do one book a quarter
Yeah.
with us, because hopefully you're not. Many of you won't be here forever. Some of you will, because we all also encourage entrepreneurship and encourage that if you want to be a future business owner, talk to us. We can help coach you in that. But we also know that a lot of people are going to move on to new and better things and new passions, and we want them to be better when they leave.
Oh, amen, man.
Love it.
I love it.
Talk to us about where can people find you, and follow you.
So yeah, the Streetwise podcast on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Check me out. That whole thing is based on helping people get off of zero and becoming the person that their dreams need them to be. And it just so happens to be through my lens as a franchise owner and a franchise consultant. I'm on Matthew McReynolds, you can find me on Facebook. LinkedIn is my biggest platform. Instagram, I'm trying to do the whole TikTok thing, but I'm getting there.
I know what you mean.
Hit me up on any platform, follow the podcast.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.